Hello, everyone, and welcome to day one of PL-400, which is Microsoft's Power Platforms developer. Right. So today, being day one, uh, we will try to cover a few topics in terms of today's agenda, which is implementing advanced Canvas app features, optimize and troubleshoot the apps, and we also will try to look at configure, power, automate cloud flows. So these are the topics that we have planned for today. Before we get started, I think I'll quickly introduce myself. Hello everyone, my name is Karthik B. I'm going to be a trainer for these 5 days, covering PL400 related topics. And a few things about me. I've been working on Microsoft products for more than a decade now. I started with Microsoft 365, and I now cover pretty much all the uh, technologies that Microsoft offers. And I am PL400 certified, so I'll be driving through the content which is scheduled in PL400. So that's about me. A few other items that we should be aware of. In the chat, I'm sure you will find the check-in code in couple of seconds, and you for sure will be able to access the resource hub and check in using the code which is shared. You also will notice the link for the labs, and make sure that you do redeem the lab key, which will be shared with you in a couple of seconds, because that way you then will be able to work on the lab exercise that's available for us, right? So um, make sure you do check in within these 2 hours, and at the same time redeem the training key as well, so that you'll be able to work on the lab. So with that being said, I think let's get started with the first learning path altogether. The first learning path is about implement advanced Canvas apps features and optimize and troubleshoot the app. Now, this is one of the learning path where we will be able to cover two modules. First is implement complete Power FX formulas and functions, and then troubleshoot the Canvas app issues by using monitor and browser-based debugging tool. So these are two things that this particular learning path includes. So let's get started with the first one, which is implement complex Power FX formulas and functions. Right. So this is where we will be able to cover few of the topics for sure. Now, over here, we will talk about using imperative versus declarative development, then understanding the variables in power effects, then understanding when to utilize each of three different types of variables, right? Then use the patch function to update your data, and understanding how the default function is used to create new records with patch. Finally, determine whether to use clear and collect or clear collect, right? Few options definitely available for us to get a good understanding on, right? So once we are done with this module, we then will move on to the next one. So where first one to quickly get some understanding is about using imperative versus declarative development. Now, there are two main ways to approach the development. One is imperative development, which focuses on how to achieve a goal, and declarative development focus on what results you want, right? So again, to better understand imperative programming, think about the sandwich that you would want for lunch, right? Imperative programming, your focus is on creating the sandwich in your code. So you would go to kitchen, get the ingredients, put the sandwich together, and then send it to the user. So you spend numerous times um, on these steps, but you have all of these specific functions. You would want to make it exactly the way you want, right? Example, no tomatoes, no problem, right? In a complete made-up programming language, your code might look something like maybe function create sandwich, go to kitchen, get ingredients, remove tomatoes, assemble sandwich, function send sandwich, right? So as you can see, there are a lot of steps in the process, but you get a sandwich exactly the way you want. This is the approach you see in the languages such as C sharp or other popular coding language. The focus is on pushing the data, and that's what imperative programming talks about. Second is declarative. For declarative programming, think of the same scenario, uh, your sandwich for lunch. The difference is now you are focused on producing the sandwich, not how to make the sandwich. This is less complex, but you might also run into issues with tomatoes. So if the function you use to get the sandwich doesn't support an option of no tomatoes, you're out of luck, right? So your code may be as straightforward as get sandwich kitchen to mouth, right? I mean, that's for how you will be able to then look at using the declarative sandwich, declarative programming. Now, Power Apps, the thing that we would be working on, supports both imperative and declarative methodologies. So Power Apps has capabilities for both imperative and declarative logic. Now, throughout the training, there is going to be a focus on declarative formulas. In the reminder of the module, the focus is on imperative concepts and methodologies in Power Apps. Now, let us try to get some further understanding in terms of the variables, right? So you can use variables to temporarily store the information that you need to reference while an app is running. The common scenarios includes keeping a running count, managing UI state, improving the performance by avoiding repeated calculations, or temporarily storing the list of data as well. Again, variables are a key driver for imperative logic in Power Apps because they allow you to build the sandwich piece by piece, right? Now, to support your needs, Power Apps has three different types of variables. One is a global variable, second is a context variable, and third is a collection, right? Now, the most traditional type of variable is the global variable. So you can use the set function to create and set its value. Now, then you can reference its value anywhere within your app. So, a common use is to store the display name when the app loads and then reference the variable throughout the app. So, that is what global variable is. Second is a context variable. A context variable is only available on the screen where you create it using the update context function. So context variables are commonly used for functionality that controls a pop-up screen. For an example, where you want to use the same variable name on multiple screens but maintain a value separately. So that is what context variables would do. Third is a collection. Now, a collection is a special type of variable for storing the table of data. Now, you can create the collection manually or by loading another data source table into it, right? Now, collections are available throughout your apps just like global variables, and they are created using collect or create clear collect functions. So when you're choosing which type of variable to use, consider where you will be using it and the structure of the data that you would want to store. And when in doubt, use a global variable as it has the most flexibility, right? So that is how we have three different types of variables definitely available, right? So let's get some further understanding on each one of these variables one by one, right? One is, again, first one is global variable. Now, global variables are the most commonly used variables because of their flexibility. Now, after you set the variable, you can reference it or update it throughout your app. And this would allow you to avoid repetitive queries for the same information repetitively, right? So, example, let's say if you are planning on storing information for your user, you could use welcome and user full name, right? Now, this formula displays the string um, um, welcome, and then we'll query your Microsoft Entra ID for the user's display name property, and we'll display it as the text, right? So that is what you will be able to ensure you do look at with the help of welcome and user dot full name, right? A better approach would be to store that information in a global variable when the app opens, and then reference that variable throughout your app. So maybe you could do this by modifying the on start property of an app with a formula which is set variable user display name and user not full name, right? So now you for your label controls, you can change the formula um as welcome and welcome and variable username. So you've set where user display name as this. So wherever you will invoke this one, it automatically will display the user's name, right? So that is how you will be able to work with global variables. Now, if we talk about tracking the status in a variable, right? You for sure will be able to track the status as well. Um, just as an example, um, now, there is a variable that can self-reference. So this concept is both for global and the context variables. Now, sometimes you need to make a variable that points to itself, right? So this is often done maybe when you want to either do a count type variable where it increments the value or you append a string. So with Power Apps, this is an easy implementation. You can place the formula on the on select property of the button, and you will be able to set where counter and where counter plus one. So next to the button, you can put a label with a text property, and you can put where counter. The first time that you select the button, your value will be 1. If you select the button the second time, the value will be 2. So that is how you will be able to set the variable which can self-reference. Right now, you also will be able to use a variable, um, maybe to auto update, or variables don't auto update, or a variable that can store a single record as well. So that is how you can work with the respective variables for sure. Now we do have contextual variables. Now what contextual variables would do is, contextual variables, these are very similar to the global variables, except they are only referenced on the screen where you create them. Now, although it's possible to set the user's name to a variable to reference throughout your app, um, there are still advantages to the fact that contextual variables cannot be used on other screens. So sometimes you have functionality you want to use on multiple screens. Um, that is variable driven, right? For example, many apps use the pop-up dialog box to confirm things like maybe deleting a record. Now, a common way to implement is to set a contextual variable to true when the user selects the delete button, right? So you do that by setting again the on select property of a button to maybe update the context, and variable show pop-up to true. So when you then set the visible property of the pop-up control to where show pop-up, and this is similar to the example from the global variable. So the major difference is the reusability. So if you copy the controls maybe to another screen, then you have two instances of where show pop-up, right? Now these two instances use the same name but can have different values. Now the value of the where show pop-up on, let's say, maybe screen 1 doesn't affect the value of where show variable, which is show pop-up, right? Where show pop-up on screen 2, because each contextual variable, and even when they have the same name, are scoped on the screen they are on. So typically reusing variable names isn't recommended because it can be confusing, but it's great if you want to reuse functionality independently on different screens. So if you are in doubt and whether you should use global or context variable, typically global variables are the default answers. So global variables are available everywhere, making them the most flexible, right? One unique behavior of the update context function is that you can declare more than one variable at a time. Now, this isn't possible with the set function. So to create more than one context variable with a single formula, you can use a comma in the variables, right? Example, update context, variable count 1, variable active is true, and then variable name is going to be username dot function, right? So to do the same thing with the global variable, you um, would use something such as set variable count to 1, right? Set variable active to true, set variable name or where name as this, right? So that is how you will be able to specify the appropriate values, either for a global variable, or it could be for a also be for your contextual variable. So this is an example of contextual variable, and this is an example for global variable, right? So let's also quickly talk about using the collections. Now, we've seen how global and contextual variable store single value. Now, the third type or third variable type is the collections, which allows you to store a table of data in memory. Now, collections are useful when you need to temporarily store the structured data for reuse within your app. This data can come from a data source, can be created within the app, or can be a combination of both as well. So you easily will be able to use collections to increase the performance, right? One common reason for using collections is to reduce the repetitive call to the same data source. For an example, let's say if your app needs to reference a list of active projects multiple times, you can retrieve the data once and store it in a collection. To store a copy of a project table in a collection named collect projects, you can use this formula. So you can say collect projects, and what you are collecting it from, you're collecting the data from projects. Now this creates a collection named collect projects that will have the same rows and columns as the project table from your data source. And couple of considerations that you would need to understand about using collections, they are definitely mentioned on the screen as well. The collect function isn't delegable, which means by default only first 500 records of um, from the data source will be retrieved and will be stored in the collection. So it's not deligible, and it can only store first 500 records. Second, collections aren't linked to the data source after you create them, which means changes to the data in the collection don't automatically save uh, those changes to the data source as well, right? And third, collections are temporary. When you close the app, the collection and all of its content are removed. If you need to store collection data, you need to write it to the data source before closing the app. So that is how we do have third option, which is using the collection. Right now, you also will be able to use dynamic collections. Now, collections don't have to come from a data source, right? Or you can also create collections directly within your app, right? Now, this is commonly done to populate drop down controls, combo boxes, or to stage the data before writing it to the data sources, right? So that is how you will be able to use dynamic collections as well. Now, if you talk about a variable, right? Now, a variable can store a single row. This applies to global and the contextual variables, right? Now, in terms of the additional details, right, you easily will be able to directly create and edit rows as well, uh, which is what you will be able to achieve with the help of uh, the patch function, which is one of the option available for us. Now let's try to get some understanding in terms of the um, uh, patch functionality. Just allow me a couple of seconds. I believe I should be able to um, yeah, uh, able to talk about this over here for sure. Now, when you are building your Canvas apps, right, and Canvas apps in Power Apps, you go to the galleries to display the records. from your data source, and the forms to view, create, and edit an individual record. But sometimes forms are not enough. In those scenarios, Power Apps has functions for updating your tabular data source directly. So patch is the most often used when you need to take action on the data without user interaction in a repetitive manner, or your app design doesn't allow for the use of forms. Just as an example, if you want to update a logging data source every time a user clicks a button to navigate to another screen, you could use a formula for on select property, and you can specify patch logging table, default the logging table, right? Who clicked, it would be user dot full name, right? When clicked, you will be able to specify now, and then navigate. So whenever it's clicked on that particular button, it would navigate to the next screen, and whatever kind of transition you would want to provide between the screens, you will be able to decide those. So the formula would create a new record in the data source named as logging table. So the who clicked column sets to the full name property of a user who is signed in, and when clicked column sets to the data and time of when they clicked the button, right? So this would open screen named, let's say, maybe next screen if needed, but at the same time it will keep a track of everything that is being created, right? So that is how you easily will be able to directly create and edit the rows as well. If needed, you can use patch to create a row as well, right? So you easily will be able to ensure you leverage the patch function, um, where you are editing a record. So it is also possible to edit a record in the data source. Now, to edit a single record, there are three parts to the formula that we should be aware of. First, include the name of the data source that you would want to edit. This could be a tabular data source, such as your Dataverse or SharePoint, or a collection as well. Now, for an example, you use, let's say, customer orders as the name of the data source. You see, we are specifying patch the customer orders. The first thing is, again, you include the name of data source that you would want to edit. Second, the record that you want to edit in the data source, right? Now, the most common way to specify this record is use the lookup function to retrieve the record from the data source. And another option is to use the gallery, and you want to maybe update the current record, is to use the this item function to reference the record. For an example, you use a lookup a function. And third, you include the changes that you would want to make. And this is where you specify the name of the column to update, following by the values to write to that particular column, right? So over here, you see, we have patch, we have uh, a default, which is customer orders, and then we have region, Americas, and country, Canada, right? So that is how you will be able to ensure you update the information for Sean. So this is using patch to create a new record. You also will be able to use patch to edit a row as well, right? Now, if we are looking at editing the row, you will be able to specify the lookup where the ID is available, right? So it will look up within the customer order for the ID, and then over there it will try to um, set the region column to Asia and the country column to China, right? So if there are existing values in those fields, it would be overwritten. So that is generally how you will be able to ensure you do use patch to edit a row as well at any given point of time. Now you will be able to update the columns as well with patch. Now again, the primary logic of uh, most patch functions is updating the proper column with the correct information. Now this is the source of most of your troubleshooting of the patch function. So you can use few points to help you work through patch. First, make sure that you update all of the required columns from your data source. Then you can update as many or as few of the optional columns as you would like. And then make sure your column names are spelled and capitalized correctly, because column names are case sensitive. Then make sure that you write the correct data type. For an example, if the column in the data source is a number type, then you cannot write a string value to it, even if that string number or contains a number. So that is how you should be able to make sure uh, that you update the columns with patch. Now you can hard code a value, um, or you can reference a variable, or you can reference the value from the property of a control, or you can use the output of a formula as well, right? So that is how we will be able to look at the uh, patch, or using the patch for sure. Let's say if you are planning to delete the wreckage from data source and collections, right? So to delete a record from your data source, you can use remove function. Use the remove function to specify the data source and the record that you would want to delete. Now, the most common way to specify this is use the lookup function to retrieve the record from the data source. Another option is if you are using a gallery and you want to delete the current record, you can use this item operator, which points to the respective record, right? So now remove doesn't ask for confirmation. So remove doesn't prompt for any confirmation before deleting the specific record. If you would like to confirm that the user wanted to remove the record, you need to create a confirmation functionality, such as a pop-up dialog with the buttons. Now you also will be able to delete based on a condition. So if you want to delete more than one record from your data source, you can use remove if. Now the remove if allows you to provide a data source to delete from, and a condition for selecting the records to uh, delete, right? For an example, you could use a formula like remove if customer orders status equals expired, right? So you can use this formula to delete all the records where the status equals expired from the customer orders. So this is how you will be able to delete with the help of remove if. Let's say if you want to delete all the records, it's also possible to delete all the records in a data source. This is most common with collections, where you can use the clear function If you want to delete all the records from a data source, you can use remove if as well. Now, the clear function deletes all the records of a collection. The columns of the collection remains. The only input to pass to the function is the column or sorry collection names. So let's say you specify clear collect selected items, right? So it will delete all the records from a collection which is called as collect selected items. So that is how you easily will be able to use remove if or clear function as well. Now if you want to delete all the records from the data source, then again remove if, then you specify the data source name, example customer orders, and then comma space true. If you specify this, it will delete all the records from the data source as well. So these are few of the options that are available for us. uh, um, right? So that is what you easily will be able to look at in terms of deleting a row as well. um, uh, Sorry, is there a question? Let me just quickly check. To give me a couple of seconds. um, okay, got it. Right, so if in case you're planning to maybe uh, look at bulk changes, right? So you also will be able to run bulk changes to the rows. Now, if you are planning for that, you can use a for all function, right? Now, patch and remove are both functions that are used to affect one row, and you can use for all function, which is to loop through a table of data and run the patch or remove function for each row in the table. So that way you will be able to work on bulk things using for all function and the patch and remove, which both are available for affecting the single row. You also can use the collect function to write from one table to another if needed, right? So that is how bulk changes to the rows are done. um, let's say if you would want to go for uh, filter, uh, right? So to be able to filter, you will be able to filter the dataverse choice column with the help of power fx formulas for short. Now when you have a dataverse table with a choice column, you will often want to filter data using that choice column, right? Now, the most common filtering scenarios are filter the table row for display in a gallery, or have a drop down menu or combo box control with the list of choice values, and then maybe let the user select one or more. um, then you can use the selected values to filter the table rows that you show in the gallery. Just as an example, if you have a category choice column on the accounts table, you can use this particular logic to filter only preferred customers, right? So filter accounts. Now this is the table, right? Category is category from accounts, and that is supposed to be just filtered customers. So be sure to use the full table dot column string and not just the column string, um, because I mean preferred customer because it would be an invalid comparison. So if you forget to add the table to the string, you see an incompatible type for the comparison error. So just as an example, if you look at this over here, just give me a couple of seconds here. Um, right. So I just want to show you how exactly it looks like if you just specify the column name and not the table string in it, right? So ensure that you are specifying the table, which is over here. You see category from account dot preferred customer, and that's when it will start working fine. Now you can also filter using a choice drop down. So the simplest way to set choice column value in a table is to use an edit form, right? Now, when you add a choice column to the form, you will be able to also specify possibly the drop down, which is uh, either a drop down or a combo box to filter a gallery, so users can select which category of item to display. Now over here you see, you will see or you can use a combo box to allow users to make multiple selections of account categories to show in the gallery, right? So so first you need to ensure you add a combo box to the screen, and then you set the items property by using the choice function. Now the choice function prepares a list of values for your user to select from by using the metadata of the choice column, which is accounts dot category. Next, you modify the items formula for the gallery to include using the combo box selected items property. Now, there are multiple things that you for sure will be able to do with the help of the choice drop down. Uh, let's also talk about the um, relationships, right? Now, if let's say you are trying to work with the uh, tables, one of the thing that you would need to look at is the relationship of the tables. So let's try to get uh, in details on how to work with the relationship. Now, when data is modeled in Microsoft's Dataverse, separate tables are used to represent distinct objects and concepts, right? Now, if you are working with multiple uh, tables, you might end up getting into a situation of a table relationship. Now, there are two types of relationships available. One is one to many relationship, and second is many to many relationship. Now, one to many relationship are the most common dataverse relationship that you will work with. Now, to explain or to help explain how to work with relationship in a Canvas app, the um, ensuing example will use the relationship between the location and the desk tables, right? So the diagram that you do see over here is the visualization of the relationship and the corresponding data. So if you want to allow a user to select a location and to have that location's desk show in the gallery underneath. You might create a screen which is might look something like this. Just give me a couple of seconds. Think I will be able to show that to you. Right. So location one, where you will have desk one, desk two, and all of it. Right. So um, 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 as with most data sources, you could use the filter function to find the desks to only show the desks from the selected location. So you will be able to specify appropriate formula that would appear similar to what is available over here. Um, that I will quickly show that to you. Okay, right. So this could be one of the formula that you can definitely leverage, which is filter desks location dot location equals filter location underscore one dot selected dot location, right? Because you are working with the dataverse one to many relationship, you can instead use the dot notation to reference the location's desk by using control dot selected dot desk, right? So that is generally how you will be able to ensure you do work with one to many relationship, right? Similarly, we also have many to um, just allow me a couple of seconds. I think these are a few examples that we do have available in terms of how to use the formulas, right? We've already talked about using the dot notation to retrieve the related rows for Sean, right? Similarly, if you would want to maybe get rows um, from a many to one kind of relationship, which is exactly opposite to what one to many relationship provides, right? Now similarly, we uh, also have something called as many to many relationship. Now the many to many relationship is something that is going to provide you with an option or flexibility to track when multiple rows have the same related data, right? Unlike one to many relationship, many to many relationship don't have a concept of a primary table. The relationship is entirely symmetrical, and you can access the set of related rows starting from either side of many to many relationship. Just as an example, I think I should be able to show this to you again in the form of a diagram that's available. So you see over here, I do have the details, right? So let's say Contoso workspace sharing data model um, on you wherein you have a canvas app which uses desks and the desk feature items, right? Now the diagram illustrates the relationship and the corresponding data. Now each desk can have multiple associated desk feature rows, right? And you can associate each desk feature with multiple desks as well. So you could access the set of desk features from a desk row by using this item dot desk features expression, right? And from the desk feature row, you can use this item dot desks expressions to access all desks that are associated with a specific desk features. So that is generally how you will be able to either work with one to many or many to many kind of uh, relationship in the respective Canvas apps. Right now, let's also try to have a look at some understanding in terms of troubleshooting the Canvas app issues. possibly by using the monitor and other browser-based debugging tools that we have, right? So the first one is to understand um, the importance of thinking about uh, the performance, right? Now, monitor is one of the tool that you can launch from Microsoft Power Apps Studio to help you troubleshoot the problems and improve the quality of your applications. Now, the key issues that you can identify using the monitor includes errors when you are using connectors or large volume of data being sent or received, or slow connector response times, or unexpected interactions with the controls, or maybe duplicate data actions as well. So um, the details that we do have available in terms of working with the monitoring is you would need to ensure you look for the performance, right? Now, once you are done with looking at performance, a few considerations that we should also be aware of is the asset size. Maybe republish your app, um, or build a focused app altogether, right? Now, if you are planning on improving the performance with the data sources, now when we talk about improving the performance with data sources, often in your app, you can use collections to cache the data, right? Often in your app you would find yourself querying the same data repeatedly, like in the case of pulling the list of departments for your drop down menu. In those instances, you can query for the data once and then reuse that data throughout the app. Now, this would reduce the repetitive calls to the data source across the network, right? So that's one, which is you can use the collection to cache your data for sure. Second, maybe you can look at um, using the concurrent functions to load multiple data sources as well. So previously we also have talked about using the cache data in your app, right? Which is with the help of collection. Now, as you implement that functionality in the app, it's common to have several collection load when the app launches. Your on start property might look at multiple collections, right? So ensure you clear collect, and uh, if you are creating, let's say, three collections, but the collections are processed one at a time, so if each one takes at least 3 seconds to process, then your user will have to wait for 9 seconds for the app to start, right? So the concurrent function then allows you to process all the other calls at the same time. So make sure that you are looking at using the concurrent function to load multiple data sources as well. Now, delegation also affects performance. When you learned about delegation, you focus on returning the right number of rows uh, for your data source. It is also important to remember that delegation, especially for mobile apps, can also affect the performance. When a formula delegates to the data source, all of the processing is handled by the data source, and only the matching rows are returned across the network to the app to be displayed. If a function isn't deligible, then it's common to change the delegation limit to 2000 rows, which means the first 2000 rows are downloaded across the network and then processed locally. In this scenario, where you are on maybe let's say slow cellular network or a low end mobile device, this processing can take a considerable amount of time, causing a poor experience for the users. So try to use only deligible functions as much as possible. And if your function isn't deligible, then plan for the impact on the end user, right? So these are few of the things that we should be aware of in terms of improving the performance with data source. Again, using the concurrent function, which we've just talked about it a couple of seconds ago, right? And let us also try to compare on start versus on visible, right? So on start and on visible are part of your toolkit for building great apps. But from a performance point of view, they can have a major impact, right? Example, the on start is the app level property, and formulas in this property are run once whenever your app starts and never again. So that's what on start is. So all of the formulas must process before the app opens. Now this is often used to initialize data that you need throughout the app. And second is on visible. Now this is a per screen property. Formula in this property are run every time a user navigates to the screen. Now the screen renders before the formula is finished processing. So from a performance perspective, the key consideration is when the code runs. Once when the app starts, or every time a screen is shown. So the collection of department from earlier in this particular module is definitely considered as a great example. So that code loads in the on start property of an app. This means it was loaded once, uh, and then is always available. If you moved that code from on start to on visible, you would lose the advantage of the collection. So if the formula was in the on visible property, each time the user navigates to the screen, the data source would be queried. In that case, it would perform as well as leaving the code for the drop down. This doesn't mean you shouldn't use on visible. On visible is great for formula that pertain to the current screen that you need to run, right? So that is how we have on start and on visible as well available. Now let's also talk about optimizing app load time. Now if you are planning for optimizing the app load time, there are certain things that maybe you need to consider. You can use monitor to troubleshoot the app start performance issues. Optimize your app dot on start. Then you can look at data load strategies, right? These are certain things that you for sure will be able to look for when we talk about uh, um, optimizing the app load time, right? Now let's also try to look at the network activities of your app, right? This is one of the important aspect to look for when we are trying to troubleshoot. So ensure that you are verifying the network for the app, right? Because let's say Microsoft uh, will provide you with a lot of capabilities which you easily will be able to leverage in terms of troubleshooting and understanding the app performance. Now that we've talked about testing from within the app, you need to look at the actual network calls and performance as well, um, if needed, right? Now, to be able to do this, we will be able to run complete testing and the troubleshooting of the app as well, right? Now, you also will be able to ensure that you are looking at a few of the additional services, such as the browser's network activity, to understand how much time is being consumed by your application, right? Now, if we talk about Azure, or if we talk about the monitor, right, you easily will be able to use uh, Azure Monitor uh, that you can launch from Microsoft's Power App Studio to troubleshoot problems and improve the overall quality of your app. A few key elements that you can identify by using monitor includes errors in using the connectors, or extensive data being sent or received, or slow responses from the connectors, or duplicated data actions as well. So when monitor is activated, it captures and allows you to view a stream of events from your running apps, right? These events include user interactions with controls and the use of data sources as well. Generating this log as the app starts and then analyzing it can help you understand how your app is spending its load time, right? So that is what you will be able to achieve with the help of the monitor tool. We also have something called as trace, right? So before that, I think there is a small video that demonstrates how to activate the monitor and review the data that is captured during the startup of your app. I think let me get that video on the screen, and you will be able to have a look at it. So just give me a couple of seconds. I will get the video on the screen and get it played. Okay, it just is a small 2 minutes 15 seconds video. I think I should be able to quickly adjust the screen resolution, and will get the video played. Just allow me a couple of seconds. This is the one that I'm talking about, and let me also have a look at making sure that the audio is also uh, can't enable the sound. Just give me a couple of seconds. I think I'll just stop the screen share and share it again. That should things. Um, right now it's, I don't know, for some reason I am unable to stop the. I mean, Do let me know if this is audible, okay? Just give me a couple of seconds. Let me.
In this video, we're going to look at how to use Power Apps Monitor to determine what your
Uh, was it audible, team? Okay, great, perfect. So I think let's quickly get this thing played, and here it is.
In this video, we're going to look at how to use Power Apps Monitor to determine what your Canvas app is doing during its application load time. We're going to start by going to the application on start, and we're going to go ahead and instrument it with some trace calls so we can see specifically when the formulas in app on start begin and when they end. We're going to add another trace call at the end of the formulas, and we're going to go ahead and launch Monitor, which you can do from here, but this is not how we want to measure it, but we'll go ahead and do this so you can kind of see how this works. Once Monitor launches, we'll go back and we can manually run the app on start because it's already run by going to the tree view, going to run on start, and then we can look at what the application did during that on start, and we can see the get rows, the clear collect, the my profile, and the trace begin and end. But we don't see everything, as we'll see when we run the application from a cold start from the published version. So what I recommend doing is, instead of doing the monitor like this, go ahead and go to Settings. We're going to enable debug a published application. We're going to go ahead and save our application, publish it so it's the published version. Go back to our list of applications. Now, from the ellipsis, we're going to go to More Commands, and we're going to go to Monitor from there. This will allow us to start the application using the published version of the application. So once it's loaded up, you'll get the Play Published Application. You'll go ahead and click on that. Our application will load. You can tell it's running in Monitor because it has the little red dot. And we'll go back to our list, and this is now our new trace. And you'll notice that there's a couple extra things that we ended up getting in here running the published version that we did not see when we simply ran the on. That's why we recommend, when you're trying to see what's really happening when your application starts up, that you do a cold start from the menu running the published version. And that's how you configure and set that up to be able to do it.
Right, so this is kind of a quick demo on uh, how to start the monitoring and capture the information during the startup of your app, right? So that is what you easily will be able to ensure you do look at with the help of the monitor, right? So that was one of the demonstration that I had available, which I wanted to make sure that I do show it to you, right? So you also will be able to add custom traces message for monitor, which is on start, and you'll be able to specify those details over here for sure for your respective monitoring perspectives, right? So this is what we had in terms of the first learning path, where we've tried looking at two modules. The first one was related to implementing complex power effects formulas and functions, and second, troubleshooting Canvas app issues by using Monitor and other browser based tools. Right now, I think we will quickly continue with the session and try to look at one of the learning path, which talks about configure power automate cloud flows. Now in this particular module uh, or learning path, we will be able to look at three things. One is configure Dataverse connector actions and triggers, right? Second, implement complex expressions in flow steps and develop reusable logic by using child flow. So these are three modules that we do have available, and once done with this module, we can say we also are done with our day one's content, right? So I think let's quickly first get some understanding in terms of the topic, which is what is Power Automate. Right now, we are talking about Power apps. We've looked at Power Apps, and I believe we will try to cover a little bit more in terms of what capabilities exist in terms of the Power Automate. Now, Power Automate is an online workflow service that helps in automating actions across the most common apps and services, right? So that is generally what I mean Power Automate is capable of. Now, if you are beginner, you easily will be able to see, for example, let's say if you can create a flow that posts a message on Microsoft Teams channel whenever an issue is created in Jira or your favorite planning tool, right? So these types of integration can help the various tools you use every day work better together. Now, what is it that you can achieve with the help of Power Automate? uh, you can automate certain things, such as instantly respond to high priority notification or email, right? That's one. Second, you can capture, track, and follow up with new sales lead, if needed. Third, you can copy all email attachments to your OneDrive for Business account, or you can automate an approval workflow, or you can collect data about your business and share that information with your teams. So these are a few things that you see that Power Automate definitely provides you with in terms of the capabilities. Now, I think there are a few types of flows available in Power Automate. We have automated flows, we have instant flows, we have scheduled flows, business process flows, and desktop flows as well. And I think before we even try to get a deep dive, I do have a similar type of video for this one as well. So I think I'll quickly get that thing on the screen so that you will be able to
In this video,
have a look at a small 3 minutes video which talks about all the different types of flows that are supported by Power Platforms, right? I think I just will quickly have that thing on the screen, and let's get this thing played. I have made sure, yeah, the resolution is the maximum, and here's the video.
I want to highlight some of the different types of things that you can build with Power Automate. And to do that, I'm going to go to the Power Automate Maker portal and go to the Create option, and let's look at what you can create from here. There are different types of things you can start from blank and build, and let's go through them and talk about the differences between each of the different items. The first three items, Automated Cloudflow, Instant Cloudflow, and Scheduled Cloudflow, are all different types of cloud flows. Cloud flows, well, run in the cloud, so they don't run on your desktop, they run in the cloud, and they use connectors to talk to the different services, like Microsoft Teams, like Dataverse, or any of the other third-party services that there are connectors for, as well as the custom connectors that you can build and use with cloud flows. Let's talk about the different types of cloud flows. First, automated cloud flows. Automated cloud flows are triggered based on events. For example, a new email comes into your inbox. That could trigger an automation to run. A new message is put on a Teams channel. A new row is added to a Dataverse table. Those are all examples of automated cloud flows. They're very helpful because they respond to business events and allow you to trigger your automation on those events. The next type is instant flows. These are more on demand, so you can run an instant flow whenever you want. It doesn't run on a schedule, it runs when you click a button. That button could be on your mobile Power Automate application, where you select the flow that you want to run, and it runs from that trigger from your mobile device. The third type is scheduled flow. Like it sounds, a scheduled flow runs, well, on a schedule. So it could be once a day, could be once a week, once a month. For example, I could have something run every morning before I come into the office, go through the emails that are in my inbox, and categorize the ones that are high priority so I can triage them first when I come in. Now, the fourth icon is a little bit special. This allows you to simply describe what type of cloud flow you want. It'll figure out if it's an automated, instant, or scheduled. For example, I could say every month, copy all files from OneDrive folder X to OneDrive folder Y to do a process of migrating the folders on a monthly basis. It would build a scheduled flow that would do the copy of the folders. And it would do that using the AI capabilities of Power Automate. The next type is the desktop flow. Unlike a cloud flow that runs using connectors, desktop flows allow you to automate actions that you would do on your desktop using the applications that run on your desktop or in the web browser. This is particularly helpful for things that there aren't connectors for. You can build desktop flows to automate your internal applications that may not have a connector to easily automate it with a cloud flow. And finally, process mining. This is where you can discover what optimizations you can do to your existing processes. Well, that is kind of a high-level overview of the different things you can build with Power Automate. In the rest of this module, we're going to focus on building cloud flows. Let's get started.
Right. So this is a quick example of all the types of Power Automate flows that you can create. So we've talked about automated flows, instant flows, scheduled flows, desktop flows, and process mining. So that's generally what you do get with the help of the Power Automate. Right now, I think in terms of the first module, we do have configure your Dataverse connector actions and triggers, right? So this is one of the module that we do have available. I think we should be able to quickly cover this with as much details as possible. So let's try to ensure we get there and look at this topic for sure. Now this module has two small things to cover. One is Dataverse triggers and actions available in Power Automate, right? And additional inputs that are available. So when we say we are working with Power Automate and Microsoft's Dataverse, right? So with the Microsoft Dataverse connector, you can build Microsoft Power Automate cloud flow automation that starts on event that occur in the Dataverse environment. Now, by using the connectors action, you can query, modify, and invoke Dataverse operations to implement your flow custom business logic. If you see, these are few options definitely available for us in terms of trigger. So with Power Automate, you can build again automated cloud flows with the triggers and multiple actions. Now, a trigger is an event that starts a cloud flow. The Dataverse connector supports four triggers that allows the starting of flow based on your Dataverse data event. So the triggers include first when a row is added, modified, or deleted. Right, that's one. Second, when an action is performed. Third, when a flow step is run from the business process flow. And the fourth one is when a row is selected, right? So these are four triggers that you will be able to ensure you do see, which is available for Microsoft Dataverse triggers. Similarly, basis these triggers, you will be able to see the appropriate actions that are available for you. When we talk about actions, right, you easily will be able to maybe add a new row. You'll be able to delete a row, you'll be able to download a file or an image, right? So these are few of the options that you for sure will be able to perform when you look at the actions. So basis the triggers, you can perform the appropriate actions as well as whenever needed. Now let's talk about the um, Dataverse and data change triggers. Right now, to use maybe when a row is added, modified, or a deleted trigger, you need to set up the change type, right? And the table and the scope options on the trigger. Now, all other configurations are optional. So the change type, so you use the change type trigger to set one or more data row events which you would want to trigger the flow. For an example, you can choose to have the flow run when a row is added, right? Or it's modified or deleted, or it could be a combination of any of the actions as well. Now, these data row event trigger the flow after the change to the row occurs in the Dataverse environment, right? Because of which, I mean, change type is very important. Now, if you trigger your flow on multiple change types, and if you need conditional logic depending on the type, then you can use the expression accordingly to get the change type that triggered the flow as well, right? So that is how you easily can ensure you specify the change type basis which it will try to take the appropriate action. Now you can choose the table name from the full list, um, or you can filter the list by starting to type the table name as well. Now, table names aren't presented in alphabetical order, so using the filter can be helpful in the environment with the larger number of tables. And third is the scope, right? When you create a Dataverse table, you specify the type of row ownership. So the organization can own the rows, or the user or team can own them as well. So basis all these three details, you will be able to ensure you have the trigger in place for your respective flow, right? Now, if you look at the scope, now when you create a Dataverse table, you specify the type of row ownership. Now you can use the scope option to specify which rows qualify to trigger the flow based on who owns the row uh, that's being modified. So if the table row ownership is organization, the only option um, for scope is organization. For tables that allow users or teams ownership, you can choose from any of these four. Now, when we say organization, right? So this option is the default. Any user who owns a row and modifies it can trigger your flow. Additionally, anyone who modifies organization owned tables can trigger your flow as well. Second, we do have business units. Now, this option triggers your flow if anyone in your business unit owns the modified row. For an example, consider a scenario when you are, or where you are in the marketing business unit with 16 users. Whenever any of those 16 users completes an action, they could trigger your flow if anyone else in the business unit owned the modified row as well. And then we have a business unit plus child business unit, right? Um, this option includes any child business unit user is determining whose actions can trigger your flow. Therefore, again, if the marketing business unit has child business unit of marketing USA and marketing EMEA, now the system includes those users in determining if the flow should run or not. And then finally, we have um, uh, the user, right? Again, the user, this option is the most limiting. because your flow only runs if you own the modified row. So again, depending upon different scopes, you easily will be able to ensure you let the flow get triggered. Now, if you would want, you also will be able to filter the update triggers, right? You can use filter row options to filter the rows that trigger your flow based on the values of the rows column. For example, you could filter the project table row to include only over budget rows, while adding a condition check to your flow actions could accomplish the same task, and it's less efficient than using the filter row expression. So that is generally how you will be able to look at filtering the update trigger as well. Right now, querying your data, if we talk about querying your data, the Dataverse connector has some actions designed to retrieve the data from your table. Now, broadening the option for these actions, you also have the from selected environment actions, enabling you to use the same actions when an environment other than the one you are building in. So you have select columns. Now, select columns option limits the columns that are returned from the action. You should set up the list of columns based on the data that you need in your subsequent flow steps. Providing a list of columns helps your flow be more efficient. So make sure that you use the table column logical name, which you can find on the advanced options section of the column properties. And that's how you will be able to select the columns. Then we do have expand queries, right? Now, by default, when the retrieve data action runs, they only retrieve data from the primary table that's specific on the action. So you can use the expand query option to provide the OData style expression to include data from related tables. So that is how you will be able to query the data as well. Now, let's also talk about creating and updating the actions, right? You easily will be able to create new rows, which is you can use add a new row action to create new rows in the Dataverse table. Now, these are all the actions that we're talking about. So you need to choose a table's name, and then the action dynamically shows you the top columns for that particular table. Required columns are indicated with red asterisks next to the column name. So you can't save the flow without providing input to each required column. Um, a required column is any column on a table that's set up as business required. If you mark other columns as business required in your table, after you create the flow, you would need to update your flow actions the next time you update the column as well, right? So that is how you will be able to add rows. You would be able to update rows as well. So you can use the update a row action to update an existing data row. Also, you can use the action to upsert, which is update or insert when the ID doesn't match an existing row. So the action can create a new row instead, right? So this is how you will be able to either create new rows, or you'll be able to update the existing rows as the available action. Right now, let's also talk about implementing complex expressions in the flow steps. So over here we will talk about using one or more functions to create the expressions, right? I think this is one of the module which does talk about working with the custom expressions which are available for us. Now let's try to look at what expressions generally are. Right now, when you build a flow in Power Automate, it is easy to get started by adding a trigger and some actions, and then passing data between them with dynamic content. But in most of the cases, you need to perform more complex operations. Right, you may want to do a calculation to transform data for your solution, or even to access or convert or compare the values. So in Power Automate, expressions are the set of simple functions that enable you to return the data. Put similar, you use expressions to write a formula to get your data the way you want it. Right, so that's what expressions are all about. Now, Power Automate definitely supports expression, and to write an expression in Power Automate, you select any action that has an input, then select the input fields to open the formula option menu. Uh, Notice that you will see a blue option button that appears on the right side of the input field. Now the button's upper half shows a lightning bolt, and the lower half shows a FX, which is Power FX. Right, the lower half of the button opens up the expression editor. Now selecting the FX button takes you to the expression pop-up, right, which is going to be something like this. um, um, and it is one of the place where you easily will be able to use the expression editor. Right, so there are multiple auto, I mean, you also will be able to see auto suggest, hints, and links in the formula bar available for you. When you enter a function in the formula bar, you see a pop-up with these syntax suggestions as well, um, if you think you would want to leverage those. Right, and that's how you will be able to look at working with expressions for sure. Right, now let's also talk about type of functions. Now functions are grouped into 10 different categories, including string, logic, and math. Now the categories are organized to make finding a particular function easier. Now, keep in mind, as you go through the various examples, we use static text and values. Now, this is to allow you to test and recreate the examples as easily as possible. Right, now, I think if I try to look at the first screenshot, right, this is where you will be able to see the expression editor shows some of the available string functions, example concatenate. Right, so the list is scrollable, and as you reach the end of the string functions, you will see the collection functions and so on. Right, so that is how, notice that there is a search as well available. So if you are looking for something specific, or you want to reference something specific in your formula, you can enter it directly over here in the search, and skip the scrolling for sure. Now selecting any of these formulas would add them to the formula input field, where you can add inputs to complete the formula so that you can save it as well. Right, so that is how you will be able to look at the um, functions. So the first type of function is string functions. String or text functions are used to modify a string, find characters in the string, format string, and more. Right, so that's what string functions help you achieve. Second, we have collection functions. These functions are used for array and strings. You can use them to check if the array is empty, to grab the first or the last item, or even for join, union, and intersection operations, right? So that's what second type of function provides you with, which is collection functions. We do have logical functions. The logical functions are used to work with conditions, to compare the values, and to do other logical or logic based evaluations as well. Now, these are often thought of as if statement, where, for example, you want to compare if a number is greater than the other number, right? So Power Automate supports all of the logical comparison you would expect. So that's the third type of function available, which is the logical functions. We do have conversion function also available. Now, conversion functions are used to change your data type. This can be something simple like converting a text number into an integer, or more complex function like changing the encoding of a file, maybe from base 64 to binary, right? So that is what the conversion functions help you achieve. We do have math functions. So math functions do exactly as you would expect. They would allow you to add, subtract, multiply, and perform other similar calculations as well. Also, math functions allows you to find the smallest and the largest number from the data set, or get a random number between the specified interval, amongst other things that the math function is capable of. We do have date and time functions. So they are used to return the current date and time. You can change the time zone. You can find specific info about a date and time, and do other date or time related manipulations as well. So that is what date and time functions help you achieve. We do have referencing functions available. Now, the referencing functions are used to work with the output of your actions and trigger. So the nice thing is that most of the time Power Automate writes these functions for you. So when you add dynamic content to your flow, you are actually using the referencing functions without knowing it, right? So if you add dynamic content and then hover on top of the content, you can see the underlying referencing function for sure. So that is generally how you will be able to look at working with referencing functions. We have workflow functions, we have URI parsing functions, we have manipulative functions. So these are a few of the examples that you will be able to see that you can leverage in terms of different functions for your dynamic content. And um, that's what the different types of options available are for us, right? Now let's also try to look at one last module, and that is related to develop your reusable logic by using child flow. Now this is the last topic that we have available, and possibly after this we can say we are done with the day one's content. Okay, so when we talk about develop your reusable logic by using child flow, I think let's quickly get some understanding in terms of what is child flow, right? um, Now, to be able to leverage this, uh, or get some understanding, um, first, what are child flows, right? uh, the child flows in Power Automate, uh, they are, I mean, um, the ones which you easily will be able to ensure that you create them with the nested with your parent flow. So you can use these child flows to easily manage your flow, avoiding flow with hundreds of steps. Now this approach is especially considered as beneficial if you would want to reuse the tasks in multiple places in a cloud flow, right? or even across multiple flows as well. Now, here is an example where you can have a child flow that you want to create or update a contact in your dataverse based on that contact's name. So for this, you need a solution with two flows. One is going to be your child flow, and second is going to be the parent flow. Now, the child flow, this is the flow that's nested inside your parent flow and contains the smaller task that you want to run. You can have multiple child flows inside a parent flow, and parent flow can have any type of trigger and can call into the child flow for sure, right? So that is generally how you will be able to ensure you do work with the child flows at any given point of time, right? Now, child flow can be run uh, as instant flow, and they can also run in a combination of parent and child flow, right? Or cloud flow, which is used in your business process flow, is also something where you can ensure you leverage your child flows for, right? So that's what we do have in terms of different types of flows. Now, how do you call a cloud flow from a Canvas app? Now, you can call cloud flows from Canvas app. Maybe you can specify a flow name dot your run parameters, or you also will be able to directly use the flow trigger, which is within the Power Apps. You can use ask in Power Apps to create the appropriate parameters, or you also will be able to code it, which is example, send email flow, run edit, maybe it's in form 3, whenever last submit, then it should go for email, and the text input should be the text, and generate the result based on that, right? So that is generally how you will be able to see that these are few ways using which you can call the cloud flow from the Canvas app as well. So once the Canvas app is created, you then will be able to specify the cloud flow for sure at any given point of time within your respective apps. And these are few of the topics that I wanted to ensure that I do cover. Now, a little bit of homework definitely available for you to work on is the learning path one, which is build reusable component libraries, then utilize Power Automate Cloud Flow to implement business logic for a Canvas app, and optimize Canvas app performance, including pre-loading data and query delegation. So these are few of the modules from the first learning path that's available for you to explore. And these are few labs that we would want you to work on. So I hope you do have access to the training labs, right? And the um, um, if you have training key and you've redeemed the training key, you then will be able to definitely work on the lab for sure, right? So that's what we will be able to ensure that we take it as homework, and we complete these 4 labs on our own. So this is what we had for day one's agenda. Now, if there are any queries or questions, please feel free to ask. If no questions, then I think we can call it an end, and you will be able to look at the day two's content in tomorrow's session, right? So, with that being said, thank you so much for joining us today, team, and all the best working on the lab exercise. So, thank you so much for your time.